What if the little girl inside you holds the key to unlocking your truest, most radiant self? Carl Jung revealed a truth that can set you free. Healing your inner girl isn't just about mending old wounds, it's the foundation for unleashing your feminine power. In this video, we'll take you on a journey through Jung's wisdom, with real-life stories of women like Linh and Anna who rediscovered their strength, intuition, and joy by reconnecting with the girl they left behind. You'll learn 5 practical steps to heal your inner child and awaken the vibrant feminine essence you were born with. Have you ever felt disconnected from your softness, your spark? Stay with us. This might be the call your soul's been waiting for. Let's begin. Have you ever felt a pang of loneliness in a crowded room, or an ache you can't explain? No matter how put together your life seems, that's not just you. It's the echo of a little girl inside, still waiting to be seen, heard, and loved. Carl Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, called this the inner child, a fragment of your psyche carrying wounds from the past that shape your life today. For women, this inner girl often holds the key to understanding why you feel disconnected from your true self, your feminine essence. In this chapter, we'll uncover what Carl Jung revealed about the wounded inner girl, how her hidden pain influences your relationships and choices, and how one woman's story shows the first step toward healing. Let's dive into the heart of this journey. Carl Jung taught that the human psyche is like a vast, unseen landscape, filled with parts of ourselves we've forgotten or pushed away. One of the most powerful fragments is the inner child, the little girl who once laughed freely, dreamed boldly, and felt deeply. But when that girl faced rejection, criticism, or neglect, she didn't just move on. She retreated into what Carl Jung called the shadow, the unconscious part of your mind, where unhealed wounds live. There, she continues to feel unloved, unsafe, or unworthy, quietly shaping the way you navigate the world as an adult. Carl Jung's profound insight was this: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let's meet Linh, a 34-year-old therapist with a warm smile and a life that looks perfect on the outside. Linh has a thriving practice, a supportive circle of friends, and a reputation for being the one everyone turns to for advice. But deep down, she carries a weight she can't shake. In relationships, she feels exhausted, always trying to prove she's enough. When her partner doesn't text back right away, she spirals into self-doubt, wondering if she's done something wrong. At work, she overworks to avoid criticism, haunted by a nagging fear that she's not good enough. Linh thought these feelings were just part of being too sensitive, but Carl Jung would say they're not flaws, they're the cries of her inner girl, still echoing from a childhood where she was never quite enough. Growing up, Linh's mother constantly compared her to her older sister, praising her sister's grades and poise, while dismissing Linh's efforts as not quite there. When Linh cried after a bad day at school, her mother would snap, "Stop being so emotional." Over time, Linh learned to hide her feelings, to smile even when she was hurting, to be the good girl who didn't make waves. But that little girl inside, the one who loved to dance in the backyard and dream of writing stories, didn't disappear. She retreated into the shadow, carrying the belief that her worth depended on pleasing others. Carl Jung explained that these early wounds create a psychological map: please others to be loved, or be yourself and be abandoned. This map doesn't just fade with time, it shapes your life. Carl Jung called it unconscious repetition, where your mind recreates situations that echo old wounds, hoping to heal them. For Linh, this meant choosing partners who were emotionally distant. Just like her mother, she'd pour her heart into relationships, trying to fix them, only to feel rejected again. At work, she'd take on extra tasks to prove her value, but no amount of praise could fill the void inside. Carl Jung's insight was that this isn't fate, it's the unhealed inner girl directing Lin's choices, pulling her into relationships and patterns that mirror her past. Let's make this real for you. Have you ever found yourself apologizing for things that aren't your fault? Maybe you stay quiet when someone dismisses your feelings, or you feel a knot in your stomach when you're not included in a group. That's not just you reacting, it's your inner girl, reliving moments when she felt unseen or unworthy. Carl Jung taught that these moments are clues, pointing to the wounds in your shadow. For women, the inner girl often carries specific fears, being too emotional, too much, or not enough. These fears form early, when a parent ignores your tears, when you're told to toughen up, or when your dreams are brushed off as childish. As a child, you couldn't understand that the problem wasn't you. You internalized it. I'm not good enough to be loved as I am. This internalization has a cost. Carl Jung noted that when the inner girl is wounded, she doesn't just hide, she influences your life from the unconscious. Lin's need to please others wasn't just a habit, it was her inner girl's desperate attempt to feel safe. Every time she stayed in a draining relationship or overworked to avoid criticism, she was following that childhood map. But here's the spark of hope. Carl Jung believed that by bringing these wounds into the light, you can rewrite that map. Healing the inner girl isn't about erasing the past, it's about seeing her, hearing her, and giving her the love she was denied. Lin's journey began with a small moment of awareness. One evening, after her partner ignored her texts for hours, she felt the familiar wave of panic, but instead of texting again to fix things, she paused and asked herself, why does this hurt so much? In that quiet moment, a memory surfaced, sitting alone in her room at age 10, waiting for her mother to notice her tears after a fight. That was the first time Lin realized her pain wasn't just about her partner, it was her inner girl, still waiting to be seen. Carl Jung would call this the moment the unconscious becomes conscious, a crack in the old pattern that opens the door to healing. This awareness is the first step. Carl Jung taught that healing begins when you acknowledge the inner girl's pain with compassion, not judgment. For Lin, it meant recognizing that her need to please wasn't a flaw, it was a survival strategy from a childhood where love felt conditional. By seeing her inner girl, Lin started to question the beliefs that had defined her life. Why do I feel I have to earn love? Why am I so afraid of being too much? These questions, Carl Jung argued, are the beginning of breaking free from the unconscious patterns that keep you stuck. The wounded inner girl isn't a weakness. She's a guide. Her pain points to the parts of you that need love and acceptance. As Carl Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For Lin, and for you, this means turning toward that little girl with kindness, not shame. It's the first step toward healing the wounds that block your feminine essence, which we'll explore in the next chapter. Stay with us to see how Lin began to reconnect with her true self, and how you can, too. Have you ever felt like you're living with a piece of yourself locked away, unable to fully embrace your joy, intuition, or softness? That's the price of suppressing your feminine essence, a sacred energy Carl Jung called the anima, the wellspring of creativity, gentleness, and connection that lives within us all. When the inner girl we met in Chapter 1 is wounded, this feminine essence is often the first thing to retreat, buried under layers of societal expectations and unhealed pain. In this chapter, we'll explore what Carl Jung revealed about this vital energy, why it gets stifled, and how one woman's story shows the toll it takes and the spark of hope for reclaiming it. Let's dive deeper into this journey of returning to your true self. Carl Jung described the anima as the feminine archetype in the psyche, a spiritual force that embodies intuition, receptivity, and emotional depth. It's the part of you that flows with life, trusts your inner voice, and finds beauty in simply being. For women, this feminine essence is your natural state. Think of the little girl who danced without shame, laughed without restraint, or felt deeply without fear of judgment. But society often teaches women to suppress this energy. You're told to be strong but not weak, successful but not too bold, kind but not too emotional. Over time, these messages build walls around your feminine essence, forcing it to retreat into the shadow alongside your wounded inner girl. Let's meet Anna, a 38-year-old marketing director who seems to have it all: a corner office, a polished wardrobe, and a reputation for getting things done. To the outside world, Anna is a powerhouse, independent, driven, and always in control. But inside, she feels like she's running on empty. In her relationships, she struggles to open up, always guarding her heart, as if vulnerability is a liability. At work, she pushes herself to be perfect, dismissing her own needs to prove she's enough. When she tries to relax, maybe by painting, a passion she loved as a child, she feels guilty, like she's wasting time. Anna thought this was just the cost of success, but Carl Jung would say it's the cost of suppressing her feminine essence. Growing up, Anna's father valued achievement above all else. When she brought home a painting from school, bursting with pride, he'd say, "That's nice, but how are your grades?" When she cried over a friend's betrayal, he'd tell her to toughen up. Over time, Anna learned that her softness, her creativity, her emotions were weaknesses to be hidden. She built what Carl Jung called an ego armor, a protective shell of strength and control to survive in a world that praised logic over intuition, results over joy. But this armor came at a price. Anna lost touch with the part of herself that felt alive, free, and whole. Carl Jung taught that suppressing the feminine essence isn't just a personal loss, it's a spiritual disconnection. The anima, he said, is the bridge to your soul, the source of your creativity, intuition, and ability to connect deeply with others. When it's blocked, you might feel like you're going through the motions, successful on the outside, but hollow inside. For Anna, this showed up in her relationships. She'd choose partners who admired her strength, but couldn't handle her vulnerability, leaving her feeling unseen. At work, she'd silence her intuitive ideas, opting for safe strategies to avoid criticism. Carl Jung would say this isn't just coincidence, it's the unconscious repetition of her childhood wounds, where her inner girl learned that her softness wasn't safe. Let's bring this home. Have you ever held back tears because you didn't want to seem weak, or ignored a gut feeling because it wasn't logical? Maybe you felt guilty for wanting to rest, create, or simply be without proving your worth. These are signs that your feminine essence is being stifled, often because of the same wounds we explored with Lynn in Chapter 1. Society's rules: be strong, be productive, don't be too much. Teach women to trade their natural flow for a rigid mask of control. But Carl Jung warned that this disconnection comes at a cost. You lose the spark that makes you feel alive. For Anna, the cost was exhaustion. She was so focused on being the strong, independent woman that she forgot how to feel joy without guilt. When she tried to paint, a childhood passion, she'd hear her father's voice. "That's nice." But she'd push through long workdays, ignoring her body's signals to slow down, because rest felt like failure. Carl Jung would point out that this is the ego armor at work, built to protect the wounded inner girl, but trapping the feminine essence in the process. The more Anna suppressed her softness, the more she felt like a stranger to herself, disconnected from the intuitive, creative woman she was meant to be. The spark of hope came during a quiet moment of reflection. One evening, Anna found an old sketchbook from her childhood, filled with colorful drawings and messy, joyful scribbles. As she flipped through the pages, a memory surfaced, sitting in her room at age 8. Painting with abandon, lost in her own world. That little girl didn't care about being perfect. She just loved creating. For the first time in years, Anna let herself cry. Not out of sadness, but out of longing to feel that free again. Carl Jung would call this a moment of awakening, where the unconscious begins to surface, revealing the feminine essence that's been waiting to be reclaimed. Carl Jung's insight was that the feminine essence isn't lost, it's dormant, waiting for you to create a safe space for it to bloom. For Anna, this meant recognizing that her need to be strong was a survival strategy, not her truth. She started asking herself, why do I feel guilty for wanting to create? Why am I so afraid of being seen as soft? These questions, Carl Jung argued, are the first step toward reconnecting with the anima. They help you see the walls you've built and begin to dismantle them, not with force, but with compassion for the little girl who learned to hide. This reconnection isn't about rejecting strength or independence, it's about balancing them with your natural flow. Carl Jung believed that true wholeness comes from integrating all parts of yourself, the strong and the soft, the rational and the intuitive. For Anna, and for you, this means giving yourself permission to feel, to create, to rest without guilt. It's about honoring the feminine essence that society tried to silence. In the next chapter, we'll explore practical steps to heal your inner girl and awaken this radiant energy. Stay with us to see how Anna began to let her true self shine and how you can too. What if healing your inner girl and unlocking your feminine essence is simpler than you think? Not a distant dream, but a journey you can start today. Carl Jung believed that by facing your inner wounds with compassion, you can awaken the vibrant, intuitive energy within you. In this chapter, we'll explore 5 practical steps, inspired by Carl Jung's teachings, to reconnect with your inner girl and release the feminine power that's been waiting to shine. Through Lynn's story, we'll see how these steps brought her closer to her true self and how you can take them. 2. Let's walk this path together. Carl Jung taught that healing the inner child isn't about erasing pain, it's about listening to it, honoring it, and integrating it into your whole self. The wounded inner girl we met in Chapter 1 and the suppressed feminine essence from Chapter 2 are not lost. They're waiting for you to create a safe space for them to emerge. These 5 steps are designed to help you do just that, blending Carl Jung's insights with actionable practices to bring light to your shadow and awaken your anima, the feminine energy of intuition, creativity, and connection. Step 1. Recognize your inner girl. The first step is to see your inner girl, not as a concept, but as a living part of you. Find a childhood photo of yourself, one that stirs something deep inside. Hold it gently and look into her eyes. What do you see? Joy? Curiosity? Or maybe a flicker of sadness? Ask yourself, what did this little girl dream of? What made her feel safe or unloved? Then, write her a letter. Speak to her as if she's sitting in front of you. Say, "You are enough. I see you. And I'm here now." Lynn, the therapist we met in Chapter 1, tried this. She found a photo of herself at age 7, grinning with paint on her hands, writing to that girl. She said, "I'm sorry I ignored you. You deserve to be loved just as you are." This act, Carl Jung would say, is sacred. It rebuilds the bridge to your inner world. Step 2. Listen to her needs. Your inner girl carries unmet needs: love, safety, or validation that still shape your life. To hear her, find a quiet moment. Close your eyes and place a hand on your heart. Breathe deeply and picture your inner girl. What does she look like? Is she shy, angry, or quiet? Ask her, "What do you need from me right now?" Then listen. Don't judge or rush the answer. You might feel a memory, a tear, or a whisper like, "I need to feel safe." Write it down. Lynn did this during a meditation and heard her inner girl say, "Stop trying to please everyone." That simple truth helped her realize she'd been chasing validation since childhood. Carl Jung taught that listening to these needs begins to heal the wounds that block your feminine essence. Step 3. Become her loving mother. If your inner girl didn't receive the love she needed, you can give it to her now. Notice how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake. Is your inner voice harsh? Like a critic saying, "You're not good enough." Now imagine your inner girl standing before you. Scared or hurt? Would you speak to her that way? Instead, try saying, "It's okay. I'm here for you. You're doing your best." Lynn started practicing this when she felt anxious about a work presentation. Instead of pushing through, she whispered to herself, "You're enough, even if this isn't perfect." Carl Jung called this conscious nurturing, a way to reparent your inner child with the compassion she always deserved. This step softens the ego armor we discussed in Chapter 2, letting your feminine energy flow. Step 4. Practice joy without guilt. Feminine essence thrives in joy, creativity, and play. But many women feel guilty for enjoying life without earning it. To reconnect, make a list of things that light you up, no matter how small. Maybe it's dancing to your favorite song, sketching, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea. Choose one and do it this week, without justifying it. When guilt creeps in, pause and say, "I deserve joy, just because I exist." Lynn tried this by dancing in her living room to music she loved as a kid. At first, she felt silly, but soon she was laughing, feeling a spark of the carefree girl she once was. Carl Jung would say, "This is medicine. Reclaiming joy reconnects you to the playful, vibrant energy of your anima." Step 5. Break the fear of rejection. The fear of rejection often keeps your inner girl silent, blocking your feminine essence. Think of a moment when you felt rejected, maybe by a parent, friend, or partner. Ask yourself, did that rejection define my worth? Then answer from your heart, "No. I am worthy just because I am." Lynn faced this when she remembered her mother dismissing her tears as a child. She wrote in her journal, "That wasn't about me, it was her limitation. I'm enough." This act, Carl Jung taught, is part of shadow work, naming the wound and refusing to let it define you. By breaking this fear, you free your inner girl to express herself, unlocking the intuitive, authentic energy within. Let's ground this in your life. Have you ever held back from expressing your true feelings because you feared judgment? Maybe you stayed quiet in a meeting or hid your emotions to keep the peace. These moments echo the wounds of your inner girl. But there are also opportunities. Each step, writing to her, listening to her needs, nurturing her, embracing joy, and rejecting old fears builds a bridge to your feminine essence. For Lynn, these practices weren't just exercises, they were a homecoming. She started setting boundaries, like saying no to extra work, and rediscovered her love for dancing, which made her feel alive again. Carl Jung believed these steps are transformative because they shift you from living to please others to living for yourself. By honoring your inner girl, you create a safe space for your feminine essence to bloom. Your intuition, creativity, and ability to connect without fear. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the radiant woman you've always been. Lynn's story shows that these small, brave acts can change everything. And they can for you, too. In the next chapter, we'll explore how this healing leads to individuation, becoming your whole, authentic self. Stay with us to see how these steps unfold into true freedom. What if the goal of healing isn't to become perfect, but to embrace every part of you, the strong, the soft, the wounded? The radiant Carl Jung called this process individuation, a journey of returning to your true self by integrating the inner girl and feminine essence we've explored. It's not about fixing yourself to fit society's mold. It's about peeling away the layers that hide your authentic soul. In this chapter, we'll uncover what Carl Jung meant by individuation, why it's the key to unlocking your feminine power, and how Anna's story shows the transformative beauty of becoming whole. Let's dive into the final step of this journey. Carl Jung believed that the purpose of life isn't to chase an idealized version of yourself, as modern culture often pushes. Instead, it's to become whole, embracing all parts of your psyche, including the shadow, where your wounded inner girl resides, and the anima that holds your feminine essence. Individuation is the process of bringing these hidden parts into the light, not to reject them, but to weave them into a complete, authentic you. It's a downward and inward journey, confronting old wounds, questioning borrowed beliefs, and learning to live as the woman you were born to be. Contradictions and all. Let's return to Anna, the marketing director we met in Chapter 2, who lived behind an ego armor of strength and control to hide her suppressed feminine essence. Anna's life looked perfect on paper, but she felt hollow, disconnected from the playful, creative girl she once was. Through the steps we explored in Chapter 3, writing to her inner girl, listening to her needs, and embracing joy, Anna began to see the truth. Her need to be strong was a mask built to protect the little girl who was told her softness wasn't enough. But individuation, Carl Jung taught, is about more than healing wounds. It's about integrating them into a life that feels true. Anna's turning point came when she revisited her childhood love for poetry. One evening, she pulled out her old sketchbook, the same one that sparked tears in Chapter 2, and found a poem she'd written at age 10, messy, heartfelt words about the stars. Reading it, she felt a rush of connection to that little girl who dreamed without limits. Inspired, Anna started writing again. Not for anyone else, but for herself. She didn't aim for perfection. She let her words flow, raw and unfiltered. Carl Jung would call this an act of individuation, reclaiming a piece of her soul that had been buried in the shadow. This process wasn't always easy. Carl Jung described individuation as a symbolic death, where the old self, the one shaped by external expectations, must fall away to make room for the true self. For Anna, this meant letting go of the belief that her worth came from being productive or pleasing others. When her boss criticized a project, she didn't spiral into self-doubt as she once would have. Instead, she said, "I'll consider your feedback, but I'm confident in my work." That quiet strength wasn't just assertiveness, it was the voice of a woman who no longer needed external validation to feel whole. Let's bring this to you. Have you ever felt torn between who you are and who you think you should be? Maybe you silence your creative ideas to seem professional, or hide your emotions to avoid being too much. Carl Jung taught that these tensions come from living by someone else's rules, rules that tell you to suppress your inner girl and feminine essence. Individuation is the courage to question those rules. It's asking, why do I feel I have to prove myself? whose voice is telling me I'm not enough by facing these questions. You begin to strip away the layers of conditioning, revealing the radiant, authentic woman underneath. For Anna, individuation meant embracing both her strength and her softness. She started setting boundaries, like leaving work on time to write poetry or saying no to social events that drained her. These weren't just acts of self-care, they were declarations of her worth. Carl Jung believed that when you integrate your shadow, the wounded inner girl, and your anima, the feminine essence, you stop living a fragmented life. You no longer chase approval or fear rejection because you've accepted yourself. This, Carl Jung said, is true freedom. Living as your whole self, not the version others expect. Anna's story shows the beauty of this transformation. As she wrote poetry, she noticed something shift. She felt lighter, more present, as if a weight had lifted. In relationships, she stopped choosing partners who mirrored her father's distance. Instead, she sought people who valued her vulnerability as much as her strength. At work, she trusted her intuition, pitching bold ideas that felt true to her. Carl Jung would say, this is the anima in bloom, her creativity, intuition, and connection flowing freely because she'd made peace with her inner girl. This journey isn't about erasing your past or becoming flawless. Carl Jung emphasized that individuation is a homecoming, a return to the woman you were before the world told you to be less. For Anna, it meant rediscovering the girl who loved poetry and learning to live from that place of joy and authenticity. It meant saying, I'm enough, not because of what I do, but because of who I am. This shift, Carl Jung argued, is what makes you untouchable, not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. Let's make this real for you. Think of a moment when you felt truly alive, maybe dancing as a child, creating something without fear, or laughing until your sides hurt. That's the energy individuation unlocks. It's not about adding new skills or becoming someone else. It's about peeling away the fears, doubts, and expectations that hide your true self. For Anna, it was poetry. For you, it might be painting, singing, or simply sitting still and trusting your intuition. Whatever it is, Carl Jung believed that embracing it brings you closer to wholeness. The power of individuation lies in its promise, you don't need to be anything other than yourself. As Carl Jung said, you were born to become yourself. By healing your inner girl and awakening your feminine essence, you step into a life that feels like home, a life where your strength and softness coexist, where your intuition guides you, and where your joy needs no justification. Anna's journey shows that this transformation is possible, and it starts with small, brave choices to honor your true self. In our final chapter, we'll bring it all together with a roadmap to keep this journey alive, ensuring your inner girl and feminine essence continue to shine. Stay with us to see how you can make this homecoming a lasting part of your life. You were born to shine as your whole, radiant self, not to hide your softness or dim your spark to fit someone else's mold. Carl Jung showed us that healing your inner girl and embracing your feminine essence isn't just about mending old wounds. It's about returning home to the vibrant, intuitive, and joyful woman you've always been. Through Linh and Anna's stories, we've seen how emotional awareness, practical steps, and individuation can unlock a life of freedom, creativity, and unapologetic authenticity. As Carl Jung said, you were born to become yourself. That little girl inside you, she's not just a memory, she's the key to your power. So, what's your next step? Which of these steps writing to your inner girl? Embracing joy or breaking free from fear feels like the call you need to answer today. Share your story in the comments below. Your words could light the way for someone else. If this video touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who needs to reconnect with their inner girl. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell to join Jung Psyche Hub for more journeys into self-discovery and healing. Your feminine essence is waiting to bloom. Start today. And let your true self shine.